It started with a ringtone. Not thunder, not a knock on the door, just a ringtone. Familiar, too familiar. I was sitting on the couch with my laptop going through invoices from the firm. My daughter was at her tutoring session. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the dishwasher and the faint jazz my husband liked to play on weekend afternoons. Then the name lit up on my phone screen. Brandon. I paused. Not because I was busy, but because I knew. Whenever Brandon called, it wasn't casual. It was calculated. Still, I answered. He was my brother, my little brother, 10 years younger, the baby of the family, Mom's golden boy. "Hey, Erica," he chirped. That voice, light, rehearsed just a bit too enthusiastic. I could almost hear Lily coaching him in the background. "Smile when you speak. Don't sound like you're asking. Sound like you're offering an opportunity." "What's up?" I asked, cautious but polite. He chuckled. "So Lily and I have been deep in wedding planning mode. You know how it is. Venues, florists, tastings, the works." I nodded, though he couldn't see it. "That's great. Congrats again. And, well..." He paused just long enough to sound nervous, but not long enough for me to interrupt. "We wanted to ask for a little help." I exhaled softly. "Of course. Here it comes. We were hoping you could pitch in around $55,000. I blinked. "Excuse me?" "Yeah, 55. He repeated like it was the weather. "I mean, that covers everything. Venue, deposit, catering, flowers, photography. Lily's super organized. She made a whole spreadsheet." He was proud, as if asking for the equivalent of a full year's salary was a thoughtful gesture. "Brandon," I began slowly, he cut in, "you inherited Mom's house, right? We figured this kind of balances things out." There it was, the real reason for the call. Not because I was his sister, but because he saw me as his personal bank account. I looked at the family photo on the shelf across from me. Mom smiling, holding Brandon when he was 2, and me 10 years older, already looking like someone's second mother. How did we get here? At first, I thought I'd misheard him. Maybe I missed a zero. Maybe he said 5,000. But no. Brandon had said it so effortlessly, like asking for a refill at dinner. "Brandon," I said slowly, trying to choose my words carefully, "$55,000 is a lot of money. That's not something I can just pull from the sky." He laughed lightly, like I was being dramatic. "Come on, Erica, you inherited the house, a whole house, mortgage-free. You're married to a lawyer. What's $55K to you?" I felt my spine tighten. Are you seriously comparing a mother's inheritance to a wedding party? He paused, then doubled down. "Mom loved us both, right? So why does it feel like you walked away with everything? A roof? Equity? You even kept her furniture, didn't you?" I swallowed the lump forming in my throat. This wasn't about money. It was about resentment. A decade's worth of unspoken bitterness now bleeding through speakerphone. "You said yourself you were fine with the split," I reminded him. "Yeah, because I didn't want to argue when she died. But now that I've had time to think, was it really fair? Fair? What a funny word. Fairness wasn't about giving everyone the same thing. It was about honoring what was asked, what was willed, what was right. And Brandon, he wasn't asking anymore. He was demanding compensation for a wound that had nothing to do with me. There was a long silence on the line. The kind that stretches so far you almost hear your own heartbeat echo. And then I spoke, slowly, clearly, without guilt, without apology. "Brandon, I'll give you $10,000. Silence. I could hear him blink through the phone. 10, he repeated like I'd offered a gift card to a gas station. "Yes, 10. That's all I'm comfortable giving. It's not that I don't want to help, it's just that I won't fund a fantasy." He scoffed. "A fantasy? It's my wedding, Erica. This is the most important day of my life." "Then it's something you and Lily should invest in together," I replied calmly. He didn't respond. And in that brief pause, I realized something. This wasn't the voice of a groom-to-be. This was the voice of someone trying to leverage family into guilt-based financing. "You know what?" he snapped. "I thought you were better than this, but I guess once you got the house, you stopped being part of the family." The words hit like a slap. Not because they were true, but because they came from him. The boy I bathed, the kid whose nightmares I chased away, now using bloodline as a threat. "I haven't stopped being family, Brandon," I said quietly, "but I also haven't stopped being a person with boundaries." There was a pause, not a silence, a pause, the kind that feels heavy, like a room full of words unsaid. Then Brandon's voice dropped, lower, slower, sharper. "You really just said that?" he murmured. "You're only offering 10,000 after everything Mom gave you?" He wasn't asking a question. He was laying down a verdict. "After everything I did for you growing up?" I started. He cut me off. "No, Erica, let's stop pretending you did anything for me. You inherited a house, and now you're acting like you're better than the rest of us." His voice didn't shake. It stabbed. Each word was delivered with surgical cruelty, like he had waited years to say this. "You know what? Forget it," he spat. "Just keep your house, keep your money, keep your self-righteous crap." I swallowed. Not because I agreed, but because part of me had just died. "You're not family anymore, Erica." That one landed, not because it was true, but because he meant it. He hung up, just like that. I stared at the phone in my hand like it had burned me. The room was quiet again. Same jazz playing, same warm air. But inside me, something had frozen. He was just 5 pounds when Mom brought him home. I remember the smell of formula, the creak of the old crib, and the way his fingers would curl around mine like he couldn't stand to be alone, not even for a second. Brandon was 10 years younger than me, but from the moment he came into our lives, he felt like mine. Mom was exhausted, working 2 jobs, barely sleeping, always rushing. Dad had already left by then. His absence wasn't just a memory, it was a silence that filled the house. So when Brandon cried at 2 a.m., I got up. I warmed his bottle, I held him on my chest, skin to skin, until he fell asleep again. I was 12 years old, and I learned how to soothe a baby before I learned how to wear eyeliner. I read him bedtime stories, I walked him to kindergarten, I cleaned up his messes and calmed his tantrums, not because I had to, but because no one else would. He called me Erica, but some days it felt like I was Mom #2. And I didn't resent it. Not then. Not even now. Because when you raise someone, you don't expect them to worship you, but you do expect them to remember, to see you as someone who gave without asking. That's why when Brandon said, "You're not family anymore," something inside me cracked. Because he didn't just forget our blood, he forgot our bond. Grief doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps in like fog, thick, slow, quiet. When Mom passed away, I didn't cry first. I folded laundry. I organized her pill bottles in neat little rows like she was coming back. It wasn't until I stood alone in her bedroom, sheets still warm from the hospice bed, that I realized she was really gone. And suddenly, I wasn't just the oldest daughter. I was the one left to make decisions, to sort through decades of memories and mail. The will was simple, clear. Mom had always been practical. She left the house to me because you're stable and you need the space, she wrote in her notes. Brandon would receive a lump sum cash from the life insurance savings and whatever was left after expenses. I thought he'd be fine with it. I wanted him to be fine with it. I even spoke to him the day after the reading. "I'm not mad," he said. "It makes sense. You always took care of things." But there was something in his voice, flat, cold, like a thank you card signed by a stranger. At the time, I didn't question it, because I was grieving. And sometimes when you're drowning, you don't notice who's standing by with a life preserver or who's just watching you sink. It started small, barely noticeable, little shifts in tone, tiny pauses in Brandon's voice when I mentioned the house or mom's old garden, shorter replies, delayed responses, and then there was Lily. I never disliked her. She was polite, composed, always smiling, but the kind of smile that never quite reached her eyes. At first, I thought she was just mature, older than Brandon, maybe a bit protective of him. I understood that, until the first strange text. "Hey, Erica Lily here. Just wondering if you've started moving into the house yet. It seems like such a big place for one person, maybe too big." I stared at my phone. The message was casual, harmless on the surface, but something in the wording stung. Too big for one person? It wasn't just a comment, it was a seed. A seed of doubt disguised as concern. The next time I saw Brandon, he echoed the same words. "Do you really need all that space? I mean, Lily or I were just saying, it kind of makes sense to sell and split it, you know?" And that's when I knew, this wasn't Brandon talking. Not alone. There was another voice now, whispering, shaping, sharpening his resentment like a blade. If you had walked into my house on a Saturday afternoon, you wouldn't think a storm was coming. The air smelled like garlic bread. The kitchen was alive with soft laughter and the sound of dishes clinking. My husband Daniel was humming to himself at the stove. Weekends were his time to cook. And our daughter Ava was sitting at the dining table, her legs swinging, eyebrows furrowed, pencil in hand. "Mom," she whispered urgently, "is 7 times 6 really 42? I looked up from the paperwork on my lap and smiled. "Yes, sweetheart, and you remembered it faster than last time." She beamed like she'd just won the Olympics. And for a moment, the world was still. No lawyers, no inheritance drama. Just the three of us tucked into a little pocket of peace. It wasn't a mansion, it wasn't flashy, but it was home. And I had built it brick by emotional brick after a childhood of filling baby bottles and learning how to be strong for everyone but myself. Sometimes at night, after Ava had gone to bed, Daniel would wrap his arms around me and say, "You hold this family together." And I'd whisper back, "No, we all hold each other." That's the life I had before the storm, before the knock on the door came from my own brother. It came out of nowhere. A text from Brandon at 9:42 p.m., 2 days before my birthday. "Hey sis, Lily and I want to take you out for dinner this weekend to celebrate, just the 4 of us." Our treat? I stared at the message for a while. It felt off. Not because it was rude, not even because of the smiley face, but because Brandon never remembered my birthday. Not last year, not the year before that. And now suddenly a dinner? Just the 4 of us? My husband Daniel leaned over and read the message. His eyes narrowed slightly. "That's unexpected," he said carefully. I nodded. "You think it's weird too?" Daniel didn't answer right away, but his hand moved instinctively to rest gently over mine. "Let's just say I'll bring my briefcase and a fully charged phone." I smiled, half laughing. "You think I'll need legal counsel at my own birthday dinner?" "Not if it's dinner," he said, "but if it's something else, pretending to be dinner." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to, because deep down I already felt it. This wasn't a celebration. It was a setup dressed as a surprise. The restaurant was beautiful. Too beautiful, actually. The kind of place where the napkins were folded like swans and waiters whispered instead of spoke. Daniel and I arrived a few minutes early. A hostess in all black led us to a semi-private room in the back. A long velvet curtain separated it from the rest of the dining area. And there, already seated at the table, were Brandon and Lily, dressed to the nines, smiling like everything was normal. "Happy birthday!" Brandon stood up and opened his arms like nothing had happened. Lily gave me an air kiss on the cheek. "You look amazing, Erica." I forced a smile. "Thanks. This place is fancy." Lily giggled. "We thought you deserved something special." But as I pulled out my chair and sat down, something in my stomach twisted. Across the room, separated only by the curtain, were 3 men in dark suits seated at a nearby table, not eating, not talking, just sitting, with briefcases and stacks of papers spread out in front of them. Daniel noticed them too. He leaned over, murmured, "Looks like someone brought their work to dinner." I nodded, but the knot in my chest tightened. Something about the way Brandon kept glancing toward that table, the way Lily smoothed her dress and sat perfectly upright, made the air feel thinner. This wasn't a celebration. It was a performance, and I had just walked into the opening scene. The food hadn't arrived yet. But the pressure had. Brandon cleared his throat like he was about to give a wedding toast. "So, Erica," he began, "I've been thinking a lot about Mom's house. I mean, it's just sitting there, right?" I blinked. And just like that, the mask dropped. Lily leaned forward, her voice sweet but loaded. "We just thought maybe managing everything on your own must be overwhelming. What if we helped?" She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. Daniel's body tensed beside me. Brandon smiled like a magician revealing his final trick. He slid the envelope across the table. "Take a look. It's just a simple document, a delegation agreement. It would shift management of the property into a trust, one we can all benefit from." I opened the envelope slowly. Inside, legal documents, signatures, one section already filled in with Lily listed as co-trustee. "Just sign," she said softly. "You won't have to handle anything anymore. We'll take care of it all for you." There it was. Not a gift, not a favor, a transfer of power. Brandon added, "It's really a win-win. I get to feel included, you get your freedom." I didn't speak. I just looked at them, at the couple sitting across from me smiling with the confidence of people who think you're too polite to say no. And for a moment, they were right. I froze, not out of fear, but out of grief, because this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a betrayal, carefully planned, neatly printed, and slid across the table in an envelope. Daniel had been silent the whole time, not because he was confused, but because he was studying. While Brandon smiled and Lily gestured with her soft, lawyer-friendly tone, Daniel had already scanned every line of that delegation agreement. He adjusted his sleeves, calm, collected. Then he looked up. "I see," he said slowly. "So this is coercion, disguised as a birthday celebration." Lily blinked. "Excuse me?" Brandon's smile froze. "Wait, what?" Daniel placed the paper down neatly and reached into his jacket pocket. From inside, he pulled out a voice recorder. Black, small. Its red light blinked steadily on the white tablecloth. "I've been recording this conversation since the moment we sat down." The air dropped 10 degrees. Lily's eyes widened, her posture stiffening like glass. "You can't. This is illegal," she stammered. Daniel raised a calm eyebrow. "Actually, we're in a one-party consent state, which means only one of us needs to know we're being recorded. And that one was me." Brandon looked like someone had pulled the rug out from under him. Daniel continued, his voice cool as ice. "This document isn't just a delegation. It's a full asset transfer masquerading as convenience. And naming the fiancé, someone with no legal connection to the estate, as co-trustee," he leaned forward slightly, "that's not support. That's fraud." Silence. Deafening. Then one of the suited men near the curtain stood up awkwardly. I wasn't informed it would go this way. Please excuse me." One by one, they left, quietly, like roaches fleeing light. Brandon's hands were shaking, Lily's lip was trembling, and me, I finally breathed. For the first time that night, they were the ones trapped. The room was still, not because it was peaceful, but because everyone was holding their breath. Then Daniel reached into his briefcase. This time, no warnings, no speeches. Just a folder thick-sealed, marked with a single name, Violet Moore, my mother. He placed it on the table, opened it slowly, and began to read aloud. This is a private investigator's report commissioned before her death by Mrs. Moore herself. Brandon's eyes flickered. Lily blinked, lips parting. The subject of the report, Daniel continued, is Lily. He turned a page.
Over a 6-month period, the investigator recorded the following behavior. Lily approached at least 3 elderly women in separate neighborhoods, posing as a community volunteer or casual acquaintance. In each case, she asked probing questions about the woman's health, mental clarity, and financial status. He paused. In one instance, she even asked a neighbor if Mrs. Moore had started forgetting things lately. Lily's jaw clenched. "This is absurd," Daniel cut in calmly. "No, this is patterned behavior. It's not just what you did to Erica's mother. It's what you've done before." Lily looked like the room was spinning. Brandon turned to her, the betrayal now written on his face. "You told me you loved Mom," he whispered. "And I do," she gasped, eyes wide. But no one in the room believed her anymore, because now we had the proof. I didn't plan to reveal this part. Not here, not like this. But something inside me snapped the moment Lily looked Brandon in the eyes and said, "I loved your mother." So I reached into my bag, pulled out an envelope, this one yellowed at the edges, older, handled often. I laid it gently on the table. The room was silent again. "This," I said, "was given to me by Mom, weeks before she passed." I opened it. Inside was a printed document stamped with a date, typed header, "Application for Voluntary Guardianship." Lily's name was on it. And in the section that asked why the guardianship was being pursued, she had written, "Due to recent cognitive decline, Violet Moore is no longer capable of managing her financial affairs." Gasps around the room. Brandon's face went pale. He reached for the paper, hesitated, and then pulled his hand back like it burned. "You were planning to take over her life?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You wanted to declare her incompetent so you could control everything?" Lily's lip trembled. I was just trying to help. She seemed confused sometimes." Daniel cut in razor sharp. According to her own doctor, Violet Moore remained mentally sound until her final days. This was nothing more than legal manipulation disguised as concern. Brandon didn't speak. His jaw clenched, his shoulders rigid. He finally saw it. Not just what Lily had done, but what she had been preparing all along. "You don't understand," Lily said, voice cracking. "Your mother trusted me." I smiled, but it wasn't kind. It was the kind of smile that comes from grief and rage woven together. No, Lily, she didn't. And I had the proof. I reached again into my purse and pulled out a folded letter, handwritten, faded ink, a small violet pressed inside the fold. I unfolded it slowly. "This is a letter my mother wrote. To herself. She left it tucked inside her journal, the one she kept hidden in her sewing drawer. She knew I'd find it." Daniel nodded solemnly. I began to read, "Something about Lily feels off. She's charming, yes. Attentive. Too attentive. She asks about the house. She asks about Erica. She watches me when she thinks I'm not looking. I hope I'm wrong. God, I hope I'm just being paranoid. But if I'm not, Erica, darling, protect what matters, and never ever let guilt make you give it away." I looked up. The room had gone completely still. Lily opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Brandon lowered his head, one hand covering his eyes, because now he knew. Mom had seen it coming, and she'd tried to warn us. Brandon's fingers tapped restlessly on the table. He wasn't blinking, just staring at the flower from Mom's letter, that little violet crushed flat in time. No one said a word. Finally, his voice came soft, cracked, and not like his. "I didn't know." Daniel tilted his head. "Didn't know what?" "Brandon, I didn't know she was planning all that. The guardianship, the letter, the lawyers. She told me it was just a formality, that it was to protect the estate from taxes. She said Erica was going to sell the house and vanish with everything. I felt something inside me shatter. "And you believed her?" I asked. He looked up at me, eyes red, shoulders shaking. I wanted to believe her, because the truth meant I helped destroy Mom. Silence again, but this time it was louder. Daniel's voice broke through like a blade. "Did you know about the investigators? The phone records? The older women Lily contacted over the years?" Brandon blinked. "What investigators?" I slid another folder across the table. Inside, reports from a private eye, audio transcripts, surveillance photos of Lily visiting a nursing home in Florida under a false name. Brandon's hand trembled as he turned each page. Then he stopped at one image, Lily, standing with an elderly woman, holding her hand. The woman had a vacant stare. And a bracelet. The same bracelet Mom wore until the day she died. "That's Mom's bracelet," Brandon whispered. "But that's not Mom." And now even Brandon couldn't deny it anymore. Even after everything. The lies, the forged documents, the bracelet, the voice recordings. Even after seeing it all with his own eyes, Brandon still married her. Well, almost. The wedding was set for Saturday at 2 p.m. Lavender roses. A string quartet flown in from San Diego. Guests from 3 states. And at the altar, Lily, radiant in ivory silk, like she hadn't just been exposed as a predator. When I saw the invitation still go out, I was stunned. So was Daniel. "He's still going through with it?" I whispered. Daniel didn't answer at first. Then he leaned forward, eyes cold. "He's trapped. You grow up being told love is unconditional. You watch your family fall apart, and you cling to anything that feels like a forever. Brandon doesn't love her. He just doesn't know who he is without her anymore." I nodded, because I knew that feeling too. But that didn't mean we'd sit quietly in the pews. No, we were coming. And this time, we were bringing a gift. We didn't dress to match the wedding. We dressed for war. Daniel in a sharp black suit, no tie. Me in a simple navy dress. No pearls, no pretense. As we walked into the venue, I could feel the eyes. Some curious, some judgmental, some whispering, "That's the sister." And there they were. Brandon fidgeting near the altar, and Lily glowing like a snake in silk. She smiled when she saw us. Fake, calculated. "Erica," she cooed, "you actually came." I nodded. Of course, wouldn't miss it. Daniel's briefcase thudded gently against his leg. Inside, a speaker, the recording, and the truth. The ceremony began. The music rose. The guests smiled politely. And then, right before they exchanged vows, Daniel stood. Calm, controlled. He opened the case, placed the speaker on a chair near the aisle, and pressed play. "You'll just need to sign this, Erica. Don't worry. It's to make things easier for everyone. If you love your family, you'll do it. Otherwise, we'll take the house anyway. Brandon doesn't need to know the details, do you, baby?" The room froze, like someone had cut off the oxygen. Lily's smile cracked. Brandon's face dropped. The pastor took a step back. Daniel didn't say a word. He didn't have to. The tape said everything. The room wasn't breathing. Every guest, every violinist, every photographer frozen. You could hear the hum of the AC and the heartbeat in your own ears. Brandon looked like a ghost. Lily like a cornered animal. But she tried. This is edited. This isn't real." Daniel just raised an eyebrow, didn't even flinch. But me, I didn't come to let her talk her way out. I stood up, walked slowly, one step at a time down the aisle, heels tapping like a drum roll. When I reached the altar, the mic was right there. I looked at the pastor. He stepped back. I turned to the guests. I wasn't going to speak today, but since you've all heard part of the truth, let's play the whole thing. I tapped my phone,
connected to the speaker. And once she signs you, and I can sell that house for at least $900,000. Erica's soft. She won't fight back. Besides, if she goes to court, we'll make her look unstable. Wasn't her mom on medication? There were gasps. Someone dropped a glass. Lily turned pale. Brandon finally broke. What the hell is this? He looked from her to me to the guests, and he just collapsed into a chair, face in hands. I trusted you, he whispered. Lily reached for him. Bran, it's not what it sounds like. He pulled away. You used my mother. You tried to steal from my sister. You tried to turn me into a puppet. He stood, looked at me. For the first time, really looked. Erica, I am so sorry. Gasps echoed like a thunderclap. The silence afterward was louder than any scream. Lily took one look at Brandon's face, twisted in pain, fury, and shame, and she knew. This was the end. You're pathetic, she hissed, her voice shaking. All of you. And with that, she spun on her heel, heels clicking frantically against marble, and ran out of the hall, veil dragging behind like a ghost fleeing the past. No one stopped her, not even her bridesmaids. All eyes were now on Brandon. He walked to the microphone, took a breath, and said what no one expected. Ladies and gentlemen, there won't a wedding today. Gasps again. Someone actually clapped, but stopped halfway, not sure if they should. Brandon continued. I believed lies. I ignored warnings. And I tried to destroy the one person who never turned her back on me. He turned to Erica. You raised me when no one else did. You gave up your youth so I could have a future. And I let someone convince me you were the villain. A pause. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry. Then he walked off stage, down the steps, and right to Erica. He didn't say another word, just wrapped his arms around her and hugged her like a little brother who finally came home. And in that moment, even the harshest guests knew this was the real ceremony, not one of rings and vows, but of redemption. They met again the next day, not in a mansion, not in a courtroom, just in Erica's kitchen. Coffee, 2 mugs, no makeup, no press, no performance, just truth. Brandon looked older overnight, hair messy, voice quiet. His tux jacket from the day before was folded neatly on the chair beside him like a ghost of who he almost became. I don't know where to start, he whispered. Erica didn't speak. She just listened. I was angry. I thought Mom gave you everything. Lily told me I was owed more, that you cheated me. He looked up, eyes glassy. But I forgot. You raised me. You fed me when Mom was sick. You stayed home when your friends were out just so I wouldn't feel alone. He paused. I was blind, Erica, and I chose to stay blind because it was easier than admitting I was ungrateful. He looked down at his hands. If you never forgive me, I'll understand. And for a moment, silence, until Erica reached out, touched his hand. Brandon, you were my brother before you were my burden. I never stopped loving you. I just needed you to remember who you are. The light through the kitchen window was soft golden. Erica reached into a drawer and pulled out a small envelope. It was old, yellowed, sealed with a faded wax stamp. Brandon looked at it. His name was on the front, in their mother's handwriting. She wrote it 3 weeks before she passed, Erica said quietly. Told me to give it to you, but only when I felt you were ready. Brandon took the letter with trembling fingers, sat down, opened it, and read. My dearest Brandon, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. But if Erica gave this to you, it means she still believes in you. And so do I, always. I know your heart. I know it's big. I know it's been bruised by life. But don't let pain turn you cruel. And don't let greed make you forget who you are. Erica is your anchor. She was mine too. She's not your enemy, my sweet boy. She's your lighthouse.
Don't lose her. Whatever you choose next, let it be something that would make me proud. With all my love, Mom."
Brandon sat frozen. He didn't cry at first. He just nodded and whispered, "I remember her voice. I remember how she said my name. I forgot for a while, but I remember now." And Erica, she smiled through tears, because that was the moment she knew he was back. 3 weeks later, Brandon didn't look like the man at the wedding. The suit, gone. The attitude, gone too. Instead, he wore worn jeans, scuffed boots, and a plain t-shirt with paint stains. He had picked up a job, nothing glamorous, painting fences, cleaning out basements, helping old neighbors who still remembered when he was a boy riding a bike down the cul-de-sac. And every time someone offered to overpay him, he shook his head. "I'm not here for handouts. I'm here to make things right." He had moved out of Lily's apartment the day after the wedding, left her a note. "This wasn't love. It was escape, and I'm done running." He now rented a small studio above a bookstore. No doorman, no elevator, but peace. And he visited Erica and her daughter every weekend. No demands, no guilt, just warmth. One day, little Sophie, Erica's daughter, asked, "Uncle Brandon, why don't you wear fancy clothes anymore?" He smiled, "Because I'm not pretending to be someone else anymore, kiddo." And in that moment, Erica, watching from the doorway, felt something rise in her chest. Pride. Because redemption doesn't shout. It shows up quietly, every single day. 2 months later, Erica stood in a small community center downtown, the same one her mother used to volunteer at every Thursday afternoon. A faded photo of her mom hung on the wall of gratitude, smiling, holding a clipboard, wearing that cardigan with the missing button. Erica touched the frame gently. "You always said, kindness isn't charity, it's responsibility." That day, she signed up for outreach programs, helping women escape abusive households, teaching single mothers how to navigate housing applications, sitting quietly with trauma survivors, just so they wouldn't feel alone. She wasn't trying to be a hero, she was just continuing what her mother started. One rainy evening, Brandon stopped by with a tray of food. "Thought maybe the volunteers needed something hot," he mumbled. Erica looked at him. Wet hair, nervous smile, slightly burnt lasagna. She laughed, let him in. And that night, the two siblings stayed back after everyone left, washing dishes, sharing stories about their mom, and laughing, truly laughing for the first time in years. Because sometimes the real inheritance is not money or houses, but the courage to rebuild what we once let fall apart. The house hadn't changed much. The same creaky stair that always squeaked on the third step. The wind still whistled through that one stubborn window in the kitchen, and the jasmine bush by the porch still blooming. But something had changed, Erica. There were no more angry calls, no more tense family group chats, no more checking the locks twice at night. Now, she read stories to Sophie under the quilt her mom had made. She cooked Sunday dinners in the same pan her mother once used. She planted tulips near the mailbox because Mom always hated that bare spot. One evening, as the sun spilled golden light across the floor, Erica sat with a cup of tea, and she whispered, maybe to the walls, or maybe to her mother's memory, "You were right. A home isn't about what you own. It's about what you hold on to." In that quiet, unremarkable moment, the fight felt distant, the betrayal dulled. What remained was something stronger, peace, and purpose. It didn't happen all at once. There was no single moment of revelation, no grand speech, no teary journal entry. Just one morning, Erica was folding laundry, a sock of Sophie's in one hand, her mom's old apron still stained with tomato sauce in the other, and it hit her. Her mother had never been rich, never chased power, never cared who wore what to a wedding. But she'd left behind something more enduring than any estate, a compass. Not one made of metal or magnets, but one stitched together from truth, fairness, and quiet, fierce love. "Mom never left me a fortune," Erica whispered. "She left me a way forward."
That compass guided her now, when she set boundaries, when she offered help without losing herself, when she chose love but not at the cost of her dignity.
And maybe that's what real inheritance looks like. Not land, not property, but the unshakable knowledge that we come from someone who believed in light, even in the darkest places. Brandon never became perfect. He still forgot birthdays, still sent awkward one-line texts, still called Erica sis with a crooked grin when he was embarrassed. But one day he came over with Sophie's favorite juice boxes. He helped repair a loose fence post. And when Erica handed him a thank you towel, he looked her in the eyes and said, "I really messed up. I was angry, I was scared, and I blamed the only person who ever showed up for me." Erica didn't say anything at first. She didn't have to. She just hugged him, not like the sister who had to protect him, but like the woman who had finally let go of the weight. That afternoon, the two of them sat under the old oak tree, laughing about childhood fights, arguing about who Mom loved more, telling Sophie stories that made no sense but made her giggle anyway. And in that moment, something healed. Because maybe family isn't about being perfect, but about learning to say, "I'm sorry," and "I forgive you." Family should be your refuge, not your ransom. But sometimes the people who share your last name also carry the sharpest knives. And when that happens, you don't owe them your peace. You don't owe them your silence. And you certainly don't owe them your life. Erica learned the hard way that blood may be thicker than water, but love, real love, that's earned, not demanded. So if someone ever says, "But we're family," ask yourself, are they protecting you or just trying to control you? Because family should never be used as a weapon. Sometimes the hardest lines to draw are the ones between love and self-respect. You can love your family and still say no. You can want peace and still protect your boundaries. You can forgive someone without giving them the power to hurt you again. What Erica showed us is this: being kind doesn't mean being silent, and being family doesn't mean being obedient. Real strength is choosing truth even when it makes people uncomfortable. Real healing is knowing when to let go and when to rebuild. If this story moved you, if it made you feel seen, or if it reminded you of something you've lived through, subscribe to our channel for more stories that heal, empower, and inspire. Because your voice, your journey matters. Hit that bell, leave a comment, and let us know, what would you do if you were Erica?